worldwide to infinity. You know the roof on fire. We go boogie, oogie, oogie, and jiggle, wiggle, and dance like the roof on fire. We go drink drinks and take shots until we fall out like the roof on fire. Now baby, get my booty naked, take off all your clothes and light the roof on fire. Tell her, baby, 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 I'm on fire. I tell her, baby, 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 I'm on fire. Y'all an angel in disguise. But if you meet a friendly host, will you communicate by more? How will you speak to that? What does the frog say?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cassandra. Welcome to BOMBYX. It's a pleasure to have you all here tonight. A couple of important thank yous. First, to our tech team, Pete and Rose in the booth at the back. Especially for that cringeworthy playlist at the top, so thank you. And also a big thank you to our friends from Northampton Open Media. We are streaming the show tonight, which means that you can watch it later on public access TV and on their YouTube channel. So be sure to check it out. And it's fun to rewind sometimes and relive those moments. They've been a terrific partner for us, like all throughout the fall, streaming our election events, many of our shows. So be sure to check it out. We often stream content with them. We're going to keep doing that, so you'll find lots of interesting things to watch on their channels. So for those of you who are here for the first time, you're about to learn that our bathrooms are cringeworthy. And those of you who've been before, you already know. So they're to my left, your right, down the hall. And if you're looking for the men's room, it's at the end of the earth and hang a right. And we are incredibly grateful to the Mass Cultural Council, who has awarded us a cultural facilities grant. And with your support, we're going to do a nice renovation in the spring. And I know bathrooms are not sexy, but really ours are so cringeworthy that this will be a huge game changer. So yes, give it up for the Mass Cultural Council. And then last couple of flight attendant announcements, which I know you know. This is the moment to silence your phones. There's always one person whose phone goes off in the middle of the show. Please don't be that person. You can do it. And then resist the urge for flash photography. We want to really give our storytellers our best and most focused attention, and they're really taking a risk being up here. So let's hold them with that good energy, really listen to their stories, and thank them warmly for their effort to make all this come together. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the stage our partner in crime in all of this, Melanie, who's going to share some nuts and bolts about how this all works and tell you a little bit about the structure of tonight.
Hello and welcome to the Story Slam. We are so happy to start our 11th season of the Valley Voices Story Slam here at BOMBYX with Cassandra, who is my guest co-host for tonight. So thank you so much for doing this with us. So for those of you who have never been to a Valley Voices Story Slam, this is how it works. We have 10 storytellers this evening who have all auditioned to be here. And all of our stories tonight are around the theme that you see up here, cringe. So you're going to hear 10 really cringy stories tonight. I've heard the stories. They are cringy, let me tell you. So they have 5 minutes to tell a story. We're a little flexible with that, but they have 5 minutes to tell a story that no notes, no props, nothing like that. It needs to be a personal, first-person narrative about the theme cringe. So you are really in for a treat tonight. I am the organizer of the Valley Voices Story Slam this year, and I am the development and communications manager at the Academy of Music in Northampton, and I am very happy to be here. So just a few things. So originally, we also had a partner in this for the previous 10 years, NEPM, and NEPM, yeah, please, yes.
Yes, give it up for NEPM.
And I know that we have some representation here from NEPM tonight, so welcome. Thank you for being here. So this year, it is just an academy situation. NEPM has stepped away from Valley Voices this year just to launch some new projects, including an event series that they're now promoting called Smart and Funny People. And tickets for the first show in that series, An Evening with Ira Glass, will go on sale tomorrow, and that is at the Academy of Music. So we're really excited that they're going to be bringing Ira Glass to us. So, and also just a general little statement. Let's not forget the state of funding for the arts right now, arts and culture in our current climate. So as we're entering into the holiday season and the giving season, please consider one of the many arts and culture organizations in our area in your year of end of year giving. such as BOMBYX, of course.
Thank you.
And the Academy of Music and NEPM and all of these other wonderful organizations in our area that bring the arts and culture to you. And we love when you come to our venues and experience those things with us. So, Cassandra, you want to tell us a little bit about our theme?
Yes, so as I mentioned at the top, the theme of tonight's Valley Voices Story Slam is cringe. Those moments when we just wish we could be so small that no one saw us because something so embarrassing and terrible happened that we just wish we could evaporate. I'm sure we've all been there. I can remember a particular time in my 20s when I owned a bright blue Ford Festiva. Yes, and maybe I wasn't, in your 20s, maybe car maintenance is not at the top of the to-do list. And there was one time in the late winter, early spring, when I went over a pothole and the entire exhaust system fell out, and then I went roaring down the street at top volume because I floored it. I wanted to make the fastest getaway possible, and it only made that poor, sad little car scream even louder. Yes.
Oh, that's cringy.
It was bad.
Cassandra, have you ever been on a cringy first date?
No, not really.
I know I have.
But I'm sure you have. Tell us about it.
Let me set the scene for you. I'm 25. I don't want to go on a date with this guy, but I'm a nice person, and I did, and boy, there's a difference between someone singing to you and singing at you.
Ooh.
We sat in an Applebee's for 3 hours.
That's too long.
The groans at just the Applebee's part, I think. And he was a real theater nerd, which I am too, but he kept saying things like, "Oh, do you know this musical?" And I'd say, "I don't know if I know that musical." And he'd be like, "Let me sing songs to you here in the middle of this very busy Applebee's at the top of my lungs." And it got to the point where I was like, "Yep, I know that one. Yeah, you don't need to sing. Nope, I know it. Anyway, we sat there for 3 hours. He paid with a gift card, which is not that big a deal, but
with pencil and paper, and we have great volunteers at the back who can help with that. So don't get frustrated. Raise your hand. We're here to help.
all right. And one last person really quickly to introduce before we get going. We also have here our executive director from the Academy of Music, who is one of the co-founders of the Valley Voices Story Slam, Deborah J. Anthony, down here in the front, who is keeping time today. All right. Are you ready to start the show?
I'm so excited.
Are you ready to start the show? All right. Okay, well, first up, Our first storyteller is not a stranger to the Valley Voices Story Slam. We have up first Marie Zanfagna. Whether she is talking or singing, Marie always enjoys telling a good story. She was bitten by the Valley Voices Story Slam bug last season, so here she is again. Enjoy.
In an episode of the sitcom The Golden Girls, Sophia Petrillo says to her housemate, "Oh, Blanche, it's as plain as the caps on your front teeth." And that line always reminds me of one of the most embarrassing episodes in my life. When I was 8 years old, I fell off my bike and I chipped my 2 front teeth. And the dentist told us that the roots of those teeth were damaged, and that at some point in my life, those teeth could abscess. And he was right, because 10 years later, in my dorm room, I woke up in the middle of the night to this excruciating pain in the front of my mouth. And I thought, I must be tripping. But in fact, these 2 teeth had finally become infected. In the early hours of that morning, my dad, who was the nicest man in the world, he drove 3 hours to pick me up at school, and then by 8 a.m. in the morning, I was in our family dentist's office. So I had to have 2 root canals, an oral surgery, and then eventually those 2 teeth were capped. So 2 years later, I'm in the student union having breakfast with some friends, and I bite into a bagel, and those 2 caps broke. It was the end of my spring semester. I was in the middle of finals, and there was no way I was going home to have the repair. So I stayed at school, and I have to say, I had some fun being a toothless goon for a little while. In fact, one night I was online at the campus center, and this poor unsuspecting guy was across from me, and we were kind of eyeing each other until I smiled a really broad smile that was toothless. He was cringing. Fast forward to me in my 30s, and this whole front teeth situation has to be replaced all over again. So the specialist that I'm seeing, he wanted the size and the shape and the color of these replacement crowns to be perfect. So he sent me directly to the lab where the caps were going to be made. And I didn't know what to expect, but I walk into this place, and I'm met by this really good-looking technician. I mean, he was like Robert Redford, kind of good-looking, out of my league, and I'm like not the 19-year-old that I was in undergraduate school who was playful and self-assured. But anyway, he and his assistant lead me to this dentist-like chair, and as I'm sitting there, what appears before us is this huge screen with this gigantic slide of my wide open, stretched apart mouth with the 2 front teeth gone. I mean, it was hideous. It was so magnified, you could see the little hairs on my upper lip. You could see the red gums. You could see the 2 gold posts that those crowns are going to attach to. It was horrifying, and I was mortified. But it gets worse, because I'm lying there in this chair, and these 2 people are in my mouth, and that screen is glaring at them. And his job is to match the porcelain material to the color of my teeth. And so he's saying to her, let's put some dark yellow in there. How about some gray? Yeah, and what about, let's do some brown. Yeah, darker brown. I mean, geez, these are my teeth. Like, teeth are supposed to be white. You can imagine, I couldn't wait to get out of that place. Well, anyway, now that I'm older, I'm closer in age to that character, Sophia Petrillo, and those Golden Girls. And it's interesting to look back and look at myself at those different stages of my life and how I changed. You know, from that undergraduate hippie girl who was getting a kick out of goofing around with her jack-o'-lantern smile, to that 30-something who was, in 10 short years, super serious and uptight and intimidated by her imperfections. And even now, telling you this story, I'm cringing a little bit even after all these years. But I have to say that the perspective that you get with age is pretty valuable. And that when you're, I hear you. when you're looking back and seeing all those different versions of yourself and smiling and loving who you were at those times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. My personal fear is having my teeth knocked out, so that's very relatable, yeah. Yes, right. All right, next up we have Valerie Reiss. Valerie Reiss is a writer, editor, and recovering journalist. When our eyes met across a crowded, bougie barn in the Berkshires, he was shaking a maraca with his samba band, and I was dancing up a post-breakup storm. And our eyes connected, and what I didn't know at the time was that in that connection, there was a trap door to the most humiliating crush of my life. But we found each other after he performed, and we chatted, and he was like tall and buff and had these caramel-colored eyes, and his name was Rudy, and he was a percussionist / actor / counselor / art installer. We chatted for a moment, and I left, but then as I was leaving, I said, I have to go back to my friend who was driving. It was almost as if there was a cord connecting me to Rudy, and I just had to see him. So we drove back, and I gave him my contact information, and I said, if you're ever in Brooklyn, give me a shout. And then I went back to my place where I lived in Brooklyn, and a few days later, Rudy was not in Brooklyn, but he gave me a shout. And we emailed, and I thought I need to get my butt back up to the Berkshires as soon as possible. So I totally took a vacation from work. I took a full week's vacation, and I signed myself up for a dance and chant workshop at Kripalu in the Berkshires, as one does. And then he met me there, and we hung out and had this beautiful day by the lake, and we talked about our childhoods and his divorce and how he didn't want to be in a relationship. But that night, we danced to Krishna Das, and then we finally made out in the labyrinth. And then he took me back to his place, which smelled like wood and had art everywhere and stacks of Rilke poetry books by the bed. And he was just like super spiritually romantic, and he looked me in the eyes and he said, that eye is saying, don't fuck with me, but that eye is saying, let's play. He saw me. And also, the cunnilingus was A+, and the consent asking was next level. I was infatuated, and I went home, and we emailed, and then he invited me up for an entire weekend. He did mention again the thing about not wanting to be in a relationship, but then he invited me on a paddle boat picnic and introduced me to his stepmom, But that night at a restaurant, we were eating and a woman came storming up to our table and she glared at me and then pointed at him and said, "I want my CDs back." And he said that later, yeah, she wanted to be in a relationship with me. And that was kind of the point where the pink flags kind of started to turn crimson. But I was in it. And I went home and I sent him a care package of including a novel about the erotic passion between Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. And it was kind of at this point where I felt like this cord connecting us was maybe me flowing out a little too much power and love and connection toward him, and I wasn't getting quite that much back. We had one more weekend together in New York, and it was lovely. But after that, I felt Rudy kind of start to flicker, and then I started to spiral. I started crying a lot. I stopped eating. I lost weight. My friends were ready to throttle me if I said his name again. And I was so thinking about him all the time that there were all these coincidences. Like, his name was Rudy, and anytime I went anywhere, they were playing Message to You, Rudy by the Specials, or like that song Rudy Tooty on Rudy, or like somebody was offering me root beer. It was intense. And then we saw each other one last time back up at Kripalu by the lake. It was winter now, and I had been pouring my feelings into a journal, and I pulled my journal out while I was talking to him, and I read to him from my journal about him while sobbing, which did not win him over. I had a little tiny shred of hope left, but then a few months later, Rudy emailed me and he said, "I just moved in with my new girlfriend." And at that point, I sobbed one last time, and then I realized I needed to keep my own cord back into me and gaze into my own eyes and shake my own maracas. That was cringy. Okay. All right, next up we have Tariq Abu-jaber. And Tariq has spent many years as a corporate drone before finally dropping off and doing what he loves, growing food. Tariq, his dear wife Susie, and dog Rhubarb live on a small farm in Williamsburg, only a couple hours drive from each of his fabulous adult kids. He's a shameless ham and misses no opportunity to bore friends and family alike with his far too often repeated stories, one of which he will subject you to tonight.
Patty Turco, at 28, was 11 years my senior. Patty Turco was mean as a hornet and caustic as acid. But Patty Turco had sex with me once, so I ended up kind of following her around like a sad-eyed puppy, which is not a good look, even for a dopey 17-year-old. This, as you might guess, led to some pretty awful and entirely predictable outcomes. I started hanging around Patty's apartment, just showing up. You know, like, hey, I happen to be in the neighborhood. I don't even know what I was expecting, but Patty, being nobody's fool, quickly learned to take advantage of the situation. I'd show up, and she would essentially tell me what we were going to do for the day, where we were going to go, and what we were going to do. So I ended up being both chauffeur and escort, and inevitably picking up the tab at the end of the night. So one fine Saturday, this is July, Patty tells me we're going to a pool party at the home of the parents of friends of hers. Okay, that sounds reasonable. So we get in the car, drive a little ways out into the suburbs, get this pleasant home. There's a nice swimming pool, and I look around, there's some pretty hip people. It's a good scene, there's things to eat and drink, and it looks nice. So I take a seat in a chaise lounge, get myself something to drink, and relaxed. But that was my fatal error. You see, around Patty, you never let your guard down because she had this honing instinct for vulnerability. As soon as she saw me close my eyes, she pulled open the French doors, and out poured these two enormous St. Bernards, right? And dogs, as you may know, have an uncanny ability to identify the person in the crowd who's least interested in hanging out with dogs. And these two massive beasts come straight at me, streaming eye goo and jowl snot, right? And I am fighting these two things off with hands and feet. And Patty, of course, is rolling on the ground, screaming with laughter and pointing at me. And, of course, everyone's looking at me. I'm completely embarrassed. The only thing is, I will say, though, that I rescued a tiny scrap of dignity at the end of this encounter because, you won't believe this, the woman who owned the house actually came out, seeing me wrestling with her dogs, and got uptight at me for maltreating her dogs. And she looks at me, she says, you know, puts her hands on her hips, you know, she says, dog saliva has less germs than people's saliva. Even as a dopey 17-year-old, I had enough wherewithal to look at her and say, lady, I don't let most people lick my face either. But you get the idea. Yeah. And I just never quite caught on what the game was. Because for Patty, half the fun was abusing my gullibility, but the real fun was humiliating and embarrassing me in front of her friends. And I just wasn't picking up on this. So the summer goes on, and we're getting near the end of the summer, and I'm going to be heading off to college soon. I kind of said to myself, you know what, I'm just going to get over myself and end this sordid affair with one grand gesture. I will take her out to a nice restaurant for dinner, and hopefully we'll end this thing on a decent note. Now don't get excited, because this is upstate New York. And in upstate New York, a nice restaurant just means pretty much anything north of pizza and beer. But in this case, it was a nice enough restaurant. And so I go and I pick Patty up. And actually, to her credit, she's dressed nicely. She's showered. And you couldn't take these things for granted, Patty. Patty. And we get in the car, we drive down to this restaurant, and the host, pleasant fellow, seats us in the table in the middle of the room. And of course, my alarms start going off. Middle of the room, this is too big a stage, I know something's gonna happen. But dinner's going on, we're having a pleasant conversation. I'm thinking we're not talking about anything that could get us in trouble. I'm thinking this might just work, right? Until I notice that Patty's attention is starting to focus on the table over there, where there's this large multi-generational family party, probably Grandpa's birthday. Grandpa has his back to us, and he's dandling some grandchild on his knee, and he's making those like goofy grandpa noises, die, 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 doody, 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 right? And Patty starts to mock him openly. And I'm like, Patty, what are you doing? Knock it off. And she's just like making faces and making noises. And the family starts to notice, and the family starts to get really mad. And then the host notices, and he's heading towards our table, purple in the face, about to chew us out, and he's got his finger up like this, and he gets about 10 steps from our table, and Patty, who of course had the whole thing worked out before it ever started, jumps up out of the table, slams her cutlery down, puts her finger in my face, and in a loud, fake French accent screams, anal sex this, anal sex that, that's all you ever talk about is anal sex, and storms out the door. Leaving all eyes riveted on that pervert in the center table. I got up, laid a crisp $100 bill on the table, and tried to walk out with as much self-respect as possible. As you might imagine, that was the end of our so-called affair. But I did learn something from this. I'm just not entirely sure what it was.
All
Thank you, Tariq. I feel like those last couple of stories, maybe the three of us could talk about some bad dates and whatnot, so yeah. All right, next up, we have Hannah Drew-Moyer. Hannah is a data analyst in the nonprofit sector. She works from home and rarely has to talk to people, let alone in front of a crowd. All right, Hannah.
Last year, I went to an international day spa for the first time with my partner and learned a deeply harrowing lesson. The outside of the spa was all craggly and old, but the inside was beautiful and modern and had a pool and a steam room and massage rooms off to the side. It was obvious pretty quickly that nobody in this spa spoke English, which was fine because we were in Italy, so fair enough. But they sort of gestured us into two separate massage rooms. And on top of my massage table was a bathrobe and a little package on top, which I opened to find a big person-sized elastic band with a little strip of tissue paper running from the front to the back, which was clearly, hopefully, meant to be underwear. So I got fully naked and put these on and look over at the table, which I'm expecting to be covered in towels, but is just a blank table, and I lay on it face down and hope this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So after a few minutes, the masseuse comes in, and apparently this was fine, and she starts doing my massage, and she's speaking to me in Italian, and I'm saying nothing back because I don't speak Italian. And at the end of the massage, she says something and then leaves, and I hear the door close behind her. So I stand up and I look around the room and I see a shower in the corner, this fancy shower with no curtain, just sort of around the corner. And I think, okay, perfect, this is great. So I go over, I turn the water on, and I step in, and I put my face in the water just in time to hear the door open. So I wipe the water out of my eyes, and I look down just in time to see an arm wrapping around the shower wall to turn the water off. And if you've ever had a stranger turn off the shower that you're actively in, you know that in this moment you start to question everything. And I realized I have no idea what she was saying to me during this massage, but apparently it was important, and she almost definitely wasn't expecting to see a naked person in the shower when she walked in this room. But luckily, by the time I had this thought, she had left, so I put on my robe and I run out to the lobby where my partner is sitting by the pool in a lounge chair sipping a lemon water. And he takes one look at me and says, "Hey, do you want to go to the steam room?" Which was a funny thing to say to me because I was half wet and half dry and 100% confused and clutching a robe over me. But I was also stressed, despite the massage. So I said, yes, definitely, of course, but I also was clear that I did not know what was going on, so I asked him, do you think we're supposed to change into our bathing suits before the steam room? And he says, of course not. This is an Italian steam room. We're in Europe. Of course we're not supposed to wear bathing suits. So we go over and we hang our robes on the side, and we open the door and walk into the steam room, which was just this thick eucalyptus cloud of steam. It was so thick we couldn't even see each other. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And I had to sort of feel around and find a bench, and I sat down, and suddenly it was all relaxing because all I could see was white all around me, and it smelled so lovely, and it was really nice. And all that stress from that horrifying experience started to melt away. But eventually it got a little warm, so we decided to leave, and as he opened the door in front of me and we both stepped out into the main lobby, I realized three very important things. Number one, his paper underwear were much larger than mine. Number two, it was suddenly very clear that everyone else in this spa was wearing a bathing suit, including the bachelor party standing in front of us. And number three, paper underwear are almost definitely not supposed to go in the shower. and mine were almost entirely dissolved. So as I stood there wearing just an elastic band, I once again started to question my entire life. But then I noticed a weird smell, and it turns out that at the back of this bachelor party, someone had lit a cigar. And so suddenly all the eyes that were looking at me turned to look at him, including the staff who ran over to try to tell him that he had to put it out. And as I grabbed my robe and put it around my shoulders, my first thought was, wow, what kind of an idiot smokes in a spa?
What kind of idiot indeed. All right. Okay. This is our final story for the first half here. So next up, we have Paul McNeil. Paul McNeil likes to be with people and in front of them. He's a youth substance use prevention specialist by day, humorist by night, and performs regularly with Happier Valley Comedy's long-form improvised musical group, The Understudies. He lives in East Hampton with his wife, 2 little boys, and Winnie the yellow dog. Paul.
My mom is the only person in the world who knows exactly what happened to her when she was a little kid. She was raised by a dad who was an alcoholic, really violent, a mom who was struggling with schizophrenia, and my sister was responsible for taking care of her 2 brothers and her sister, and it was chaos. And I think it inspired my mom to try to do a better job if she were to raise kids. And guys, she was gonna have so many kids. When I was a little kid, my mom was the only person in the world who knew exactly what happened to me. When I was 2 years old, we had an old oven in the house that broke. So my dad dragged it out back to the backyard before his friend could come pick it up. And my mom was inside the house with 5 kids and a bun in her oven. And my brother Ben and I were outside in the back. And Ben is a year older than me, and he will always be an inch shorter than me. And Ben always came up with these crazy, zany, fun ways to end my life. And today he wanted to play Hansel and Gretel. So he climbed up on top of the oven, and he invited me into the oven. And so I'm 2 years old, I slowly climb onto the open door of the oven, and I think he quickly realized that he wouldn't actually be able to cook me, so he lost interest. He jumped off the stovetop, so instead of the door of the oven coming and shutting up on the oven, the whole oven came right down on me, and the front edge just landed right here on my face. And there was screaming, and there was so much blood, and my mom ran out, and she grabbed the oven with one arm, and she lifted it up with this like Hulk mom strength, and she grabbed me and pulled me out. She sent Ben into the house to grab a towel, and he came back with my special Bengal tiger beach towel, and my mom covered my face, and she held me tight, and she just kept whispering, "It's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay." And she kept saying those same 4 words like over and over again. And we went to Dr. Macklin's office. Dr. Macklin removed the towel from my face, and he gasped. And hundreds of McNeil child visits to Dr. Macklin's office, he's never ever gasped. And he slowly pushed my nose back up where it belonged with his 2 thumbs, and he patched me up and got me sent off to the hospital. And I got 64 stitches from right here across my nose down to here, and a little bit of plastic surgery. And now my nose works, mostly. And this nostril is like good enough, right? And this nostril is mostly decorative. And
I can really, really squish it, if you guys can see in the light.
It's like a Picasso. Like Paul Picasso. It's like Guernica. It's for all the art majors out there. And I ended up breaking my nose 5 more times. Basketball or gravity, my brother Ben again, and my brother Ben again. But I feel like every breath or half breath I've taken since then was a little inspiration to just try to keep a closer eye on my kids if I were to have kids. I was at the local playground with my own 2-year-old, and he was climbing up the steps to go down the slide, and he tripped, and he bumped his head on the front edge of one of the steps, and it just opened right up, like the quarter-sized hole, and there was so much blood and so much screaming. And I took him to the doctors, and I'm holding him tight, and I'm whispering, "It's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay." It's those same 4 words that my mom told me. And he had 8 stitches, like a zigzag, like Harry Potter. And as he was getting patched up, I started to sort of see and feel so many numbers, like in a cloud around my head, kind of like that scene from A Beautiful Mind, where I was doing some math, like some math of memory or like equations of empathy toward my mom. Because I was like, I have 1 kid. My mom had 8 kids. My son needed 8 stitches. I needed 64 stitches. So I sort of was realizing my mom must have felt 8 times the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the guilt. 8 times the weight of that moment. But we both ended up in the same place. We both ended up holding our little boys tight and whispering those same 4 words. And I think we're not perfect parents, but we are both good enough parents. And every breath I've taken since that event, I guess it's not so much math, it's more like a poem, where it's like an act of forgiveness for my mom and an act of forgiveness for me. And like, I guess for my brother Ben too.
All right, we are halfway through our storytellers. Give those first 5 another round of applause. Those were some great cringy stories. All right, so we are going to take a 15-minute intermission, mingle, talk about who you liked so far, think about who's coming up next. We've got some QR codes posted here in this room and also out in the lobby. Again, just a reminder, the Google form is not published yet, so you can't actually access the voting forms because we know how audiences work. But you can maybe access it and then you might have to refresh it later when we do publish it at the end of the show when we vote. But also just a reminder, by the way, when we do vote, please don't run off because we are going to be announcing the 3 finalists at the end. It does not take long to get those results in. Sometimes people run off thinking, well, I wonder who won. Don't do that. Okay. All right. So, all right. Take a 15-minute intermission. We will come back with 5 more cringy stories.
sense. They seem like they really got the message. Humor is. No, no. I like it when they're combined. Yeah. And also, I'm realizing that there's a quality of the story.
Let's see, got them.